Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into a massive, highly requested topic today: the hidden psychology of commanding respect. Seriously, if you've ever felt like your voice just isn't carrying the weight it deserves when you speak up, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let me ask you this. Have you ever sat in a meeting, offered a genuinely great, well thought out idea, and gotten nothing but, a polite little nod, only to watch someone else effortlessly command that exact same room 5 minutes later with a remarkably similar point? It's literally maddening, right?
I totally want to validate that frustration. Because here's the crazy thing: you can use the exact same words as someone else and get a completely different result. One person speaks, the room nods, and everybody just moves on. Another person speaks, the room completely pauses, and suddenly it's this profound debate. So, why does that happen? Well, it actually comes down to a set of hidden psychological signals that we are broadcasting constantly, and usually without even realizing it. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to break this down into 5 parts. First, the psychology of respect, then mastering voice and space, moving on to language and dissent, actions and boundaries, and finally, your new presence. Let's dive right in.
Section 1: the psychology of respect. The absolute first thing we need to get our heads around here is that authority, it's actually a biological and psychological mechanism. It is absolutely not just about having some loud, booming, extroverted personality.
What's totally fascinating about this is that recent 2026 social psychology research actually proves that authority happens automatically, literally milliseconds before you even open your mouth. Our human brains are basically hardwired to constantly scan the room for psychological signals of personal power. If you aren't broadcasting those specific signals, your absolute brilliant ideas, they're just going to bounce right off the room.
And that brings us to Section 2, Mastering Voice and Space. These are those immediate physical triggers of respect I was talking about. So let's look at the very first critical signal.
Signal 1 is what we call the slow voice. Basically, this means speaking at a deliberately measured pace. You want to give every single word its own real estate. When you deliberately slow things down like that, you trigger an unconscious reflex in your listeners. You are quite literally forcing the human brain to lean in, wait for it, and focus. Think about it. According to data from Psychology Today, fast speech just screams anxiety. It unconsciously tells the entire room, hey, I'm terrified you're going to interrupt me, so I just really need to rush through this. But deliberately slow speech, man, it projects undeniable certainty. It signals that you're comfortable, you're intelligent, and you totally know your thoughts are actually worth waiting for.
Which brings us to signal 2, this space. This is all about physically occupying your natural spot at the table. And look, to be clear, we are definitely not talking about aggressive manspreading or, throwing your elbows into your neighbor's coffee cup. It's just a quiet visual anchor. You are simply claiming your rightful belonging in that room.
Think about the mechanics of shrinking for a second. Pulling your arms in, crossing your legs really tightly, making your overall posture super small. That visually screams to everyone around you that you don't actually feel worthy of being there. But simply uncrossing your arms, relaxing your shoulders, and just filling your chair, that projects massive instant credibility. And this is firmly anchored in empirical data, guys. The American Psychological Association found in 2025 that physically occupying your full space makes you immediately perceived as more credible. It's basically a biological hack. Occupy your space and your power grows. Shrink and your ideas are going to shrink right along with you. Moving right along to Section 3, Language and Dissent. So now that we've adjusted how you sit and how you sound, we need to take a hard look at the actual verbal tactics you deploy when it is your turn to speak. Signal 3 is specific language. We have got to stop making these broad, sweeping statements. Instead of saying something generic like, oh, sales are down, say Q3 enterprise sales dipped by 4%. Precision signals deep knowledge, and human beings are literally evolutionarily wired to automatically respect deep knowledge. Because let's face it, vague language is incredibly easy to dismiss. It just washes over the room like white noise. But specific language, it acts like an anchor. It actually gets remembered. When you can name the exact metric or reference a specific historical precedent right off the cuff, the room instantly realizes, oh wow, this person actually possesses the authority they're projecting. That leads us right into signal 4, and I know this one causes a ton of anxiety for people: the disagreement. This is the ability to calmly, warmly, but firmly disagree without apologizing for your differing view. Listen,
Being totally comfortable with dissent is the ultimate hallmark of someone who actually respects their own mind. Here is a hard truth from recent social psychology. If you constantly agreed with everyone all the time, you aren't actually communicating with them. You are managing their feelings. And here is the real kicker. Managed people never fully trust you. If you never ever push back, the room is never going to respect your perspective, simply because they'll just assume you're acting as an echo chamber.
Let's move over to Section 4 and see how this all builds into the deep structural behaviors that cement your authority over time. Actions and boundaries. Signal 5 is the follow-through. In the modern professional world, let's be honest, words are incredibly cheap. Literally, everyone makes promises. Consistently executing exactly what you said you would do without any exceptions is the absolute rarest and most structurally authoritative signal you can possibly project.
Trust psychology reveals that credibility is really a compounding formula. It goes like this. Minute 1, a promise is made. Day 1, the action is actually taken. By week 1, undeniable credibility is built. Eventually, people are going to start listening to you before you even finish your sentences, simply because they know for a fact that your words inevitably turn into reality.
And finally, we arrive at Signal 6, which is perhaps the absolute hardest one to master: the comfortable no. This is your ability to decline a request warmly and clearly, without drowning the entire room in guilt or rambling through some 5-minute justification of why you just can't do it. I actually want to challenge you directly with this thought. If you are a chronic people pleaser, I really want you to ask yourself, what does your yes actually mean if you are entirely incapable of ever saying no? The 2026 boundary psychology conclusion on this is incredibly stark. Respect requires limits. Period. A person with no limits signals to the room that their agreement is just a default setting, not an actual deliberate choice. And a meaningless yes is simply not worth taking seriously. Your boundaries are the walls that give your words their value. Let's wrap this whole thing up with Section 5, your new presence. We've covered the slow voice, taking space, specific language, comfortable disagreement, the follow-through, and the comfortable no. Putting all these together, they don't change your personality. They just refine your signals into this really quiet, natural authority. So I'm going to leave you with this thought to take into your very next meeting or conversation. Knowing these signals now, are you going to keep exhausting yourself trying to be louder, or will you finally choose to be clearer? True power isn't about volume, guys. It's about effortless clarity. Start applying these signals today and just watch how the whole room changes. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep learning.